Hello, welcome to the Performers Pod. I am with Magdalene St. and I'm so excited to see you. We haven't seen each other in literally 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, I know a little bit about you. I knew very little when we first shot together, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I knew you were a girl performer, but honestly, until the last hour, I didn't know that you had a full acting career before you even got into porn.
Well, I wouldn't say it was a full acting career.
But you have a lot of credits. Like when I was looking down the list, like it feels pretty full to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what happened was I was so where do I start? No, I mean I've been involved in since I was a kid. I was involved in musical theater with my mother, like local amateur dramatics when I was started, I think at 12, in my hometown in a small town in Cornwall, England. And then
you're from Cornwall. Okay.
That's where I grew up. Yeah. I was actually born on the island of Malta because my dad was in the Royal Marines, the British Royal Marines. And actually, he was a SEAL too, a little bit later than that. But they called it British Special Boat Service. But anyway, so I did that. I did some plays in school. And then I went up to London, did some other type of work there, computer work. And then my mother had come out here, married someone from New York and moved out here. So I followed, and I ended up getting into what at the time was called the Screen Extras Guild. So in 1983, I think 82, I did a lot of, and I was younger then. So we, 20 somethings are in demand. And I mean, I had an amazing time. I saw so many actors, on set.
I saw you were like on sets like that were like Steven Seagal, like you were on like a film that Halle Berry was on, I read. Like
no, I don't think Halle Berry, but I mean, I did back in those days, 83 to say 86. I worked a lot. I mean, it was extra work, and then what they call stand-in work, where I stand in for performers. Like I stood in on Wall Street because I was somebody that I was with that was from New York. He was in LA, and we were together for 8 years back in the 80s. But he his brother had like a little home in Long Island, and his family home was in Brooklyn. So there was shoots there. And so when I wasn't here shooting, I would shoot when in the summers there because they kind of go on hiatus here. But I worked on so many movies, saw a lot of famous actors. I've watched directors work. I worked on a Clint Eastwood movie in LA. And I remember he said goodbye to, he said goodbye to me as to us as we were leaving the soundstage. He was kind of hanging out with his arms crossed. And my dad, I told my dad, because my dad was a big Dirty Harry movie person. But so I just learned a lot from that. So watching directors work and actors, and then I was studying acting in LA at the time. And then I eventually, I ended up getting into Screen Actors Guild. I had a couple lines on a show, but it was really one of those things where, it's like a catch-22. You need a part to get your SAG card, but then, to get your SAG card, you need a part. And so if you're on a set and someone says, hey, are you SAG? We need someone to do a line. And you're like, no, they're like, oh, well. So I forget how I got into mine. I think it was through somebody we knew that was a well-known actor at the time. And that's how I got my break. But I didn't really pursue it like I should. And I'm going to be totally honest here because that's the way I am. I'm still a member of SAG, right?
Which is like super impressive. I don't know if there's like 10 people in the porn industry who are SAG members.
Oh God. Yeah. Well,
like you're such rarefied air.
Right. I paid my dues all this time, but I got to tell you that, I did all of that for a while. I've done so many different jobs in my life. It's amazing. Like so many since I was, 15. But the thing is, I was studying acting with a great coach, really nice guy, he's passed away since. Learned a lot from him, from the Meisner. It's called the Meisner method, one of the methods that came out of New York. And I can hear my kitty crying.
I'm sure mine's gonna cry too.
Well, he's the noisiest of them all. He's the noisiest of them all. He's 17 years old plus, and he's usually quiet, but he's got these odd things now. Anyway, Perseus, be quiet.
Cats
so
are
he'll
part
lose my
of this
train
podcast.
of thought.
It's just part of it. It's all right.
Okay. So Yeah, so I will eventually get around to writing my book because people are like, oh, you got an interesting story, and I'll get sidetracked if I keep on. But so yeah, I was studying and working on a lot of shows, making good money even back then. So I would do extra work. I've spoken, to actors on the set, was asked out by a couple, ones that I used to see in England in the 70s that were on TV shows. And I'm like, wow,
That's
so,
terrific.
Yeah, I came from this small town, watching, Starsky and Hutch and all these things from the 70s, and then, met David Soul. And then, anyway, but so I did all that, and I stood in, like I said, I stood in for, I think it was Daryl Hannah and Sean Young in Long Island when I was there one summer on Wall Street. So you stand in for them while they're being lit, while they do the lighting and stuff. And then I had some what they call silent bits, which is where you don't actually say anything, but you have like interaction with another actor. So if you just don't say anything, but you're like their date or their girlfriend, or you're sitting at a table and stuff. So, but the funny thing is with me is that I'm just a nervous Nelly. People would look at me and go, oh, come on. I mean, my mother and I belonged to a club in North Hollywood. It was called the Mayflower Club. And they would put on these British pantomimes every year for, to support the club. It was a nonprofit. So I ended up, many people don't know this unless they would be British, I'm sure, but pantomime is, it's usually, it's kind of comedy, singing, dancing, corny jokes, and there's no fourth wall on the stage. So you're actually dealing and speaking to the audience. So it's not like this, where it's completely different. So you come out. So I would always play the principal boy. The principal boy is actually played by a woman who's dressed up kind of like Errol Flynn with the feathers in the cap and the stance of, the masculine thing. And they always wear fishnet tights and high boots. And then she has a girlfriend. She has actually had a love interest who's actually a girl. Right.
Love that. I'm about that 100%.
Yeah, right. And then the dame is always a dame in the character. So it could be like Puss in Boots or Dick Whittington or, these things. And so the dame, who's usually the mother of the girl, is played by a man. So it's with a big bustle on the back. It's with all the rouge and the red lipstick and the wigs. So I would do that. And I remember would get so nervous. And my mother would do the choreography because my mother was a professional dancer before she got married at a young age. And so she would do choreography and did her own shows there, which I was in. And I would be at the side of the stage, having to go on stage. And, I would people would look at me, the other people going on the set. And to me, it's like a family. I love that. It's like whether you have one line on the show, your background on the show, or you're one of the leads on the show, you're still a family. It doesn't matter to me. And I love that environment. Yeah. And so I would be standing there at the side of the stage, and some of the other people that I knew very well, older, and they could be in their 60s, 70s. At the time I did mine, I was like in my early 30s to 30. I think in the last ones I did was like 20 years ago. I did a couple. And they were like, God, you look so serious. And I went, I'm nervous. And they're like, what? You nervous? And I was like, yeah. And the butterflies, I couldn't even really eat dinner. I would get this butterflies in my stomach, right? And I'd just be so tense, and I could barely eat dinner. And once I kind of got on the stage and got off, I was fine. But, I had to sing because I sing and I dance. So I would have to do this to the audience. And people probably have a hard time believing that because what I do, I'm nervous. Now, I still belong to SAG. I've never really pushed that. I think the auditioning process, I've been on a couple little things years ago, and I get so wound up, like my stomach, my nerves.
Definitely.
Yeah, one of the things, the last thing I probably did was this executive decision where I didn't see Steven Seagal on set. It was where they got bombed, like a bomber came into the restaurant and, set a bomb off. And I was one of the hosts, the hostess at the front. But when things are thrust upon me like that, I always kind of deliver. And I got a call from, I think, Central Casting, and they said, hey, you're English. We're looking for someone for this movie. And, they picked out your picture, and I was like, okay. So I kind of got really nervous, and I met my husband at that time, like a year, 95. Mm-hmm. And I went all the way down. They shot it actually in Long Beach, California. They went all the way down there. And I did it. The director was actually an English guy that started off as an editor who did some directing.
Oh, really?
Stuart Baird is his name. And actually, I think he had a home in Cornwall where I grew up, funnily enough.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, world. Or was or something like that. And he would, so he was actually very nice. And he's like, okay, you say this. And I'm like, okay, cool, got it. And I was fine. And I came home, and my husband went, how was it? And I said, it was great. I'm exhilarated. I feel wonderful. But if I had to go audition for that, it would be different. So when I tell people that I'm nervous, an actress, a lot of them don't believe it. It's like with singing. I love to sing, but I've gotten up to sing before and my knees are like shaking and stuff. But people, it's like, go figure. I can have sex on camera in front of a crew with other people, and it's out there in the world, and I don't bat an eyelid. And
you don't have any nerves about like porn, like performing in that? Really?
No. And that's the funny thing. Wow. Is like, it's so natural to me. And, I grew up, always, even though I make people on sets, lots of sets, and a lot of sitting around, like, wait.
That's the secret of a film. You're sitting around 80% of the time.
Yeah, you're sitting 20%
of the time doing anything.
Yeah. You're sitting around waiting. It's like, hurry up and wait for one, especially on films. Films have the longest hours, and it's more sitting around than anything else. But I would not have a problem talking to people about sexual issues or people that I knew were gay in the business. And I found that fascinating. And I've never had a problem. I always thought I was good at it. The way you got complimented on, oh, you're the greatest kisser. And you give you're just so good and making love and everything. So I knew that's a talent.
That's amazing that so before you were important, people were just saying that to you casually, be like, you're the best lover. You're the best kisser.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, in dates.
Wow.
I mean,
that's amazing.
As if I had a boyfriend, in my 20s and stuff, I had people like, oh my God, your kissing is amazing. And I would pride myself on my kissing. And then I came to realize that, it's a talent, actually. Not everybody can kiss well. And, if I went on a date and there was no kissing, it was like, that was one and done. There was no more. Yeah. And so, I just walk on a set. There's no nerves going on a porn set. Now, saying that, though, Hustler had an audition they were doing a Glee thing years and years ago when I first got in the business, and I had to go sing. I was nervous as hell because it was, Axel Braun and a couple of other people from Hustler sitting there, and I got the nerves.
When was this?
That was probably about a year or two after I got in the business, like 2008. Okay. And but to me, it's up here. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think
it's all up there.
I always say that in a past life, I must have been on stage and people threw tomatoes at me, and like I was in the stocks or something like that.
Yeah.
But when I tell people, like, really, go figure, I can have sex in front of 20 people. I can be on a stripper pole. Like, I went to a couple of parties before I got into business. That's another funny story, how it led up.
Yeah. So how did you go from doing all this like acting stuff where you're like having like non-speaking roles or small parts? Like, how did you transition into porn?
Can I pause you a second?
Yeah, of course.
I gotta go get rid of my kitty because he's in.
Okay, we're back from the cat delay. Very normal thing. Very normal thing. So we were talking, how did you kind of go from doing all this like kind of mainstream acting stuff into porn? Like, what happened? Like, what influenced you? Because you obviously felt like very confident sexually, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Like you were getting so much positive like feedback from partners and dates and all that.
Yeah, I mean, not all of them.
Well, let's not talk about them. Let's only talk about the good ones.
This is kind of what I remember from my 20s and 30s anyway. How did I get into that? It's like I said, porn to me is that the sex part is nothing, it's a breeze. And I think it's because the porn is so natural to me, and I've never had a problem walking around doing, you know, housework naked in my underwear and socks or whatever. But the dialogue in porn it's like a throwaway, you know. I mean, I love the features because I really have a good memory for lines, but I always have had that, thank God. But yeah, it's almost like, because the focus is on the sex and not on the acting so much, that it's, you know, it's different. But how I got into it, it's a long story.
I'm here for that story as long as you want to go.
All right, so I was plodding along in life, kind of not doing much. My husband, I don't want to talk too much about what he does. I shouldn't probably. But anyway, there was one time he was out of town, and we had this local sushi joint. And close to where we lived in Sherman Oaks. And I went in there one night for salad, sat at the bar. I mean, you know, just like a sushi salad, whatever. And this guy walked in with a couple of, I would say he was in his 40s, maybe, a couple of young girls by his side, and they sat at the counter next to me. And they kind of smiled at me, were very friendly. And they were very chatty, and they said, "Hey, you want to go to a party?" And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And they go, "Oh, we're having a party tonight." And one of the guys behind that made the sushi, not the owner, Toshi, but this other guy, was kind of knew these people. And he kind of knew what was the deal was. I didn't, because I was so naive. And he's like, "Hey, you want to go to a party?" And I was like, well, where? And he goes, "It's right up here at Encino, around the corner." And I was like, "Oh, well, you know, I'd have to ask my husband first." They go, "Well, you can bring him." And I said, "Okay, well, you know, so let me call him." And they wrote the address down, and they said, "You know, if you want to come back and get the address, here we are." So anyway, I contact this guy, and he says, "Well, do you know what we do? You know, what kind of party?" And I kind of put it all together, and I said, "You're swingers?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I went, "Oh, well, you know, we've never been to anything like that." Right. So my husband and I, he's from LA, but, you know, we were our own best friends. So, you know, we're one of these people that, it's not that we're picky, it's just that we, you know, we love being around people, but we also love our alone time, and we're not lonely by ourselves. You know what I mean? So, and he would go out of town for work a lot. But so I told my husband when he got back later that night, he was in town, I think, that particular night, and he was doing errands. I think that's what it was. And then he had to go overseas. So he's like, "Well, no, we can't go now." And I said, "Yeah, it's already started. I got to put makeup on, and I got to get dressed. And, you know, that's like a big ordeal for a woman, right? You know, it takes me like 2 hours.
Especially if you're like going to a swingers party. Like, I feel like that's a preparation of at least an hour.
Right. And we thought, oh, well, you know, it could be little... You know, eventually when I found out, my husband actually was in town for that invite. Then he left town for like a month. And so we would talk all the day, you know, every day when he's out of town, even if it's overseas or here. And I was telling him about this. So I said, I called that guy, and he invited me up to Universal Studios with these two girls. I think one was called Katie, I forget the other girl's name. And I said, "No, I can't go tonight." And then I talked to him, and he says, "Yeah, you know, we're swingers." And there was like silence on the end, I think, from me for a little bit. And then I laughed, and he's like, "Yeah, you should come check out one of our parties." So anyway, my husband was like, "Don't go without me. You know, this is something you shouldn't go by yourself." But I said, "Of course not." And so when he came back from Europe, we kind of went to one. And that would have been probably around December, around Christmas time of 2007. 2006. And there's some other things leading up to that. And some of my fans that know me know that I've been into astrology my whole life. I've been on a spiritual search to find the meanings of things and myself and all this stuff. And, you know, it took me 50 odd years to get to that point and knowing who I am and everything. But so we went to one of these parties, and it was fun. You know, there was couples, and it's always one of those things where the woman can get in for free, but the guys
of course
can't.
they have to pay.
Well, yeah, the guys have to pay to see the hot chicks, right? So you know, and couples were fine with that, you know. And so we went to a couple. all of a sudden it was always there. One of my exes once called me an introverted extrovert, but it was always there. I love dancing, and for me, dancing is such a freedom because I don't have to say anything. Singing, you have to sing so you can get nerves. Dancing, for me, I've never been nervous. So they had stripper poles and I get up there like it was nothing, and I was like getting this attention, and then I started making out with a girl on the pole, and then more people would come around, and my husband would see this. And so anyway, long story short,
that's so amazing. I don't have words for how amazing that is.
Well,
just like, wow,
there's
you went right to it.
If you don't have a limit on your podcast.
Oh no, go for it. I want to hear all of it.
So anyway, and there's another story down the road, which is even more fascinating that has to do with this. So what happened was, this was around, like I said, Christmas 2006.
Yeah.
And there was some weird things going on around that time. Like, and this is why I believe in the astrology. Not only Western is completely wrong, Vedic Indian astrology is the right astrology, because it's kind of hard to explain. My husband's into astronomy. I've always been into astrology. And so the sky is, well, I always say, like, I'm diverting now, but the sky doesn't lie. If you have this app that's like Starfinder or whatever it's called, we both have, and you point it at the sky, it'll say in what they call an ephemeris where all the planets are, it'll say, oh, the moon is in so-and-so. Yeah. Or Jupiter is in so-and-so. But if you point this to the sky, it's wrong. It's what the Vedic, Vedic astrology is, because some event happened a couple thousand years ago, nothing to do with Jesus, but where they didn't reset something, the astronomers at the time. And so we've grown up with this Western astrology. So anyway, around this time, there was this huge event that would last for 18 years. It was actually good for me. And I've been seeing a certain astrologer with this kind of system since 2010. And he actually put a lot of pieces in my missing, well, actually not, a few pieces in my missing puzzle. But around that time, I'd been blonde for many years. And I'd been blonde for many years. And my hair guy, I felt, wasn't doing a really good job. So he was... I was like, he was great at color. He was great at cuts and good at updos for photo sessions, but his color was getting a little sloppy. And I was like, I need to find someone else. So I Googled someone in Sherman Oaks. I'll get to the point in a minute, but I'll Google someone in Sherman Oaks.
I'm here for it.
So, and he's like a color expert. And I was like, okay, let me go see this guy. So it turned out I had a consultation with him. And he said, you were blonde as a kid and as a baby. And I went, yeah. I said, well, as a baby, I was dark, but around the age of 3, I've got pictures of me as a blonde. And I went, how did you know that? And he said, oh, because you've got, I can tell by the tint in your hair. So anyway, I ended up getting my hair for years of, like 14 years, probably 16 years of being blonde. I decided, he goes, you can go dark. And I said, doesn't going dark make you look older? And he's like, no, actually it can be your skin tone and you have green eyes and all this stuff, it'll work. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went dark. I went to my husband. This would have been like October of 2006. And so I went to see my husband. He was working at the time in the Valley. And he's like, wow, I like it. I like it. Now, also, this is something I've never said, but because I'm a very honest person, people would never know this. So I'm admitting to this to you for the first time.
Oh, great.
Okay. So anyway, I wasn't working. I was in this void of stagnant place in my life. I was almost 50, and not only there was this internal change in me. Like, not only did I want to do something with my hair, it's like, I didn't really know it, but something was doing this, And so I said to my husband, when I put makeup on, and this was actually before all this swinger stuff. So before I put makeup on, my eyes were really crepey and I had big eyes. And I said, I want to get some eyelid surgery. And he's like, what? Why? And I said, I don't know. I'm just starting to look, ugh. And so I had always remembered the surgeon that I went to. But I always remember this surgeon's name in Beverly Hills because he did the certain celebrity. And I was like, there was one article I remember in the old TV Guide when they used to have TV Guides, and it would say,
oh yeah, I remember TV Guide.
Yeah, and it would say, I think I had a picture of like Farrah Fawcett and Sharon, what's her name on The View? Sharon Osbourne and
Oh
Sharon
yeah.
Osbourne, Farrah Fawcett, and someone else, and I think even Al Pacino. Like, did he have surgery? But anyway, I always remembered his name, and I went for consultation, and I had my upper eyelids done. So everybody out there that listens to this, I'm sure my fans will listen. I had that done, and I recommend
we're releasing plastic
so
surgery secrets in this.
What's that?
We're releasing plastic surgery secrets during this podcast.
Yeah. Oh, you've heard more?
No. This is a first. This is a first for the podcast. Very good. Hopefully it leads to more.
Yeah, nobody knows this but you and whoever's going to listen to this. So, and the other thing is that I'd had breast implants in 1987. I mean, I was blessed, people have different attributes, but I was always pretty flat chested. And actually, when I was a kid, it kind of was, I cried over it a lot because, girls in school were, it developed. They had periods at 14 years old. They had boobs at 13, 14, 15. And my mother had, average B's or C's, and she was 5'4". I ended up being 5'8". But I actually ended up being a late developer. I mean, most women are full grown. I think my mother had a period at 14 and was fully grown at 5'4" by, like 16. And here I was at 15, I was 5'2". And then I had hormones to make me start. And they're like, you should be lucky that you don't have a period when you're 13, 14. But I felt, I was really self-conscious about not having any boobs. And so I got them in 87.
Such a hard time too when you're that young. Like, I feel like middle school to high school years are like the worst.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't bullied over it, but I was in the girls' shower and I would after pee and I would sports and stuff, and I would kind of come in and like concave my chest. And I think that's part of the reason why my posture is so bad even now, is because I would always kind of go like that, like shrink in a little bit. And it didn't help that one of my best friends at the time when I was 16 ended up having huge boobs, natural boobs. And my other friend had great rack as well. So, but anyway, so in 87, I had them done. And what happened was when I was in 2005, actually about a year and a half before this, I had to have a hysterectomy. I was a mess. If anybody would, for me, with my insides, I'm probably the worst person to get into porn. I've had so many problems. I couldn't conceive. I had an ectopic pregnancy right after I met my husband. I had fibroids upon fibroids, inside and outside. I was a mess. So I had a hysterectomy, and because of that, in 2000, and people can see the scar in my lower regions in my stomach, or abdomen. So because of that, when I was in hospital, I ended up being put into early menopause. And so what happened was I started putting on weight. So I put on 15 pounds, 20 pounds. And so I said, well, my boobs started to look a little bit smaller, and they were kind of on top of the muscles. So they were kind of hardening, I had that horrible hardening. So, I decided, I'm like, I'm going to go for consultation, and they'll take it off the price. And this doctor, and he's really, really good. And I don't know what other famous people he's done. I'm sure a ton, because it's like the epicenter of the world for plastic surgery is Beverly Hills.
Definitely.
What's that?
I feel like that's like the most LA thing ever.
Oh, yeah.
If you're going to get plastic surgery, that's the place to do it.
Yeah. So I don't know why. I mean, and like I said, I wasn't working. I wasn't in movies. I wasn't really doing anything with my life. I was just plodding along, doing nothing. And, my husband made good money. And so I decided at that time to go a little bigger with my boobs and have them on the outside because I put on weight. So that was probably, I think I found my hairstylist in end of September. And then I had my surgeries around the end of October. And I think I was still recovering from the eye thing because I have bruises under my eye. I mean, nothing hurt. It looked amazing. I mean, anybody out there, any women, even guys, if you want to take 10 years off your life and you're unfortunate, you have eyes where it gets crepey and droopy, get it done by somebody, research it. And I swear to God, if you do one thing, do that. I mean, it literally took 10 years off me. And I was, at the time I was 40, was I 49? Yeah, I was 49. Or was I? Yeah. So I had that done. And then, so that was December, went to a couple of parties. And because of that, my husband was off work over Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And we started looking at, we thought, oh, this is different. We'll meet some new people, we'll make friends. There's certain things we won't do. Like, I would get up on the stripper pole and, dance, make out with a girl, be a bit of an exhibitionist. And this other side of me was emerging. And so he looked up, he goes, oh, well, look, there's this event in Vegas. And it was, I think, the very first swingers convention that went along with AVN and the expo.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense now.
Right? That makes sense. So we bought some tickets, right? And so we got these tickets, and it was a 3-day event. Mm-hmm. And we, and actually being older, some of these people were young and really hot and a bit picky, and were clicky and clicked. And so we went, we stayed at did we stay at the Venetian? I think we stayed there before, and we loved it. So we stayed there, but we went to 2 or 3 events, and we were kind of like sore thumbs, really. We kind of stuck out, all these people were clicky. And then we ended up meeting this group of people from San Diego that were like, hey, come sit with us. And it was like at a nightclub somewhere or a bar. And so they were like, hey, come with us. And, here we are. It's like, oh, like I said, we'll have some fun, meet some people. And so they were such a fun group, like older 50s and into the 20s. And they were all like 3 different couples. So they took us the next night, they took us to a place called the Red Rooster, which was really famous in Vegas. And it was out in the sticks. It was all like covert. You had to drive out there, stop off at a little shack, pick up a ticket, pay your money, pick up a ticket, and then go to this event. And so we showed up, and I'm talking about sleaziest of sleaziest. They had a pool in the back in the house where, old wrinkly people were, be there pretty soon, but old wrinkly.
I'm turning 30 next week, so I'm like, I'm feeling like I'm getting there.
Yeah. Well,
so I'm ready for it. Yeah.
It only gets better. Trust me. The older.
Thank you. Yeah.
No, I mean, it does. It really does. As my dad used to say, you can't put an old head on young shoulders, right? And it takes time to get to know yourself, a lot of times sometimes. So anyway, we were in this group, and there was 10 of us sitting at this table. And the bar was there, and the outfits that women were wearing, some of what the older people were doing, and we peek in the little rooms, and they'd be making out and stuff like that. And we're like looking, and we just went there because it was like famous. And it had the old yellow gold shag carpet from the 70s.
Oh, wow.
It was like a house, just a regular old house, and you see hundreds of, like 100 cars outside.
That's so cool.
But we had so much fun. I mean, we literally had so much fun, and none of us did anything. We just watched other people, and they're like, stay together. You go to the bathroom in the house. But it was just an eye opener. And anyway, so we were there Friday, went to an evening party, went there Saturday. Now, I will stress here, my husband and I never got involved in any intercourse stuff ever. You know what I mean? It was mainly just to meet people, have fun. And so the next, my husband's like, we bought this pass for the expo. We might, it was like a couple $100 or something each.
Yeah.
And we hadn't gone there yet because,
$100.
Like Vegas is 24/7. So, you'd stay up till 5, and I'm a night person anyway. I'm always up till like 5 a.m. Even if I had a job, I'd probably try to get to sleep a little earlier, and I have to take sleeping pills for that. And I have been because I have fibromyalgia, and that's part of my thing. But so he's like, we better go. And so the last day, Sunday, we've been drinking the night before. So Sunday we get ourselves together, and I think Sunday they closed at 5. We got there around 4. And it was much, much bigger than, like, Naughty America had a huge thing. And
was it at the Venetian? Was it at the Venetian?
The Sands that connects to the Venetian, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was at the Sands Hall. I think it is. And it's the Venetian, but if you walk long enough, you get into the Sands, right? So we finally went, and he's like, we better hurry up. And I was like, oh God, we're not going to see all of this. So I think I was wearing like this, my hair was a lot shorter because it had just been done a couple months before. I had bangs over here. And And so we're like, where do we start? Where do we start? So my husband, who'd been to a lot of conventions, said, hey, you know what? They're going to start closing from the back forward. So let's start at the back. And what he had spotted was Girlfriends Films flashing sign in the back of that hall. Now it was, Dan O'Connell of Girlfriends is really he'd been making stuff for 5 years. And I think he just got his first nomination, but he was looking for performers. He was looking for MILFs because it had just become a thing.
And then you walk in the door.
And then I walk
in the door.
There. My husband's like, hey, come over, let's go over there. So I walk up and Dan has a little booth in the back with his friend, Brian, I believe. His name was Brian. And he's putting stuff away and he's wearing his baseball cap and he and I, like I said, I had makeup on and I had a great like corset and jeans and boots. And he looks up and then has a big smile on his face. And he says, wow, are you a model? And I was taken aback by it. And I was like, well, I did a little bit when I was younger, like modeling. And even that I didn't really pursue like I should have. But I do believe in things happening for a reason. I definitely have always, people say, oh, it's luck. You make your own luck or whatever. And I get that. But I do believe there's certain forces in the universe that are working on a behalf that we don't know about.
Yeah,
and so
there takes so much to get you guys in the same room and for you to make it in time. There's just too many things for just
it's just too uncanny. And this one event that had happened, prior to seeing my astrologer out here in LA with real astrology, I was going through this big change that happened on December 6th and was to last for 18 years. I'm still in it for another couple of years. And it was literally, it can happen a little bit before, couple months or so, but it was like all of a sudden, boom. And I can't explain it, like, changing my hair color, getting some surgery. And then my husband's like, well, why? And it was just something I felt I had to do, And so the weirdest thing is, I chatted for him a while and he says, do you like women? And I said, yeah. I said, I've actually been with women when I first came out to this country. And that's another story, which I ended up at the Playboy Mansion. I was up there. I got some interesting stories.
I'm just amazing.
I'm such a procrastinator. People are like, when are you going to write your book? So I ended up there. I ended up with a big producer since passed away, like staying over with his place. But I also, I've gotten sidetracked a little bit now. So I, with Dan, went with a couple women there. And I remember one of the things was I ended up at this producer's house in his pool. And my first instance with a girl was, I think I was 23 when I came to America. I was 23 and almost 23. And there was this other girl and she knew the deal, knew what was going on. So he's like, she's like, come out to the pool. And I was like, okay. So we're in the pool and we're kissing. And we start kissing. And that's the first time I'd ever kissed another girl, by the way.
Were you into girls like growing up? Were you like naturally attracted to them or was it a little bit later?
Well, this is another story that some of my fans from the past will know, is that while I loved men, dated boys, guys, I also had a fetish for huge natural breasts.
Who doesn't, truly?
And my brother, I grew up in a very modest, middle class background where we called them terraced houses, almost like a townhouse, but they're joined together. We're like 5 in our little block. So, we were a middle class family and my mother didn't work at the time. But my brothers would get these girly magazines and they were younger than me. So I was like 15, 16. They were maybe, I don't know, 15. We were all like a year plus apart. And so I remember one day I was sitting on the toilet and this magazine fell out of the back of the pedestal, the old pedestal with the sink on it. And it fell out. And I was like, oh, what's this? So I look at it and I see all these, it was called, I don't know if Jugs was around at the time, but there were these women with boobs down to their waist. And I felt this twinge, these feelings, these twinges. And I was like, wow. And so I found myself starting, I think, I don't know, masturbating. But, and the funny thing was I wouldn't look at women when I went to discos or clubs or, with my friend, I didn't look at her boobs. I was, it was just something that I would look at that would turn me on. And then I had the bush, and the bush would turn me on. I was like, wow, I like women. And I, at that time, you know, when you're 16, you think it's weird. You don't think of bisexuality. Now, I know in the nearest city, Plymouth, where I grew up, you know, we were aware of gay clubs or maybe a lesbian place, but it really wasn't around. I mean, I'm going back to the mid 70s now. In Plymouth was our nearest biggest city. So I just never really thought anything of it. But when I was with this producer, you know, we were in the pool, and it was late at night, and in Beverly Hills, and we were, you know, she's like, kiss me. And I was like, really? And she's like, yeah. And she goes, he's watching. I was like, really? She goes, oh yeah, he's watching. And her name was Jade, funnily enough. I remember her name. And I think I went with 3 different women there. But he was in some other stuff, which I will eventually put in my book. But when I start, I got to start it. But, you know, that I wasn't into. And was a little sick, I thought. But we started kissing and making out. And that's my first, you know, woman that I made out with. And I think I came out and went down on her or whatever. And it was just so natural for me. You know, it was like just so natural. And it just, you know, then ended up with 2 different women. But then it hadn't happened again for like 20 odd years when I was in the before I met my husband. Yeah, before I met my husband in early 95. But prior to that, I was dating someone who had a girl there and got me to come over and massage each other. And so that was the next incident. And that was the only one. So when I was in Vegas, Dan had said to me, you know, do you like women? Have you been with women? And I said, actually, I have. And I said, I love kissing. And, you know, that's my thing. I could kiss forever. And it's this connection, and it starts everything rolling. And I said, why? And he said, well, I'm looking for women. And he goes, I got a stack of applications here that, you know, I'm looking for the right woman, and I haven't really found the right woman yet. And I mean, this was literally like 5 till 5, right? Like it was, I mean, right before he closed. And I felt, and he's like, okay, would you like to fill out a form? And I said, sure. And I looked at my husband for approval, and he goes, yeah, do it. So, you know, I told him about my acting experience, that, you know, I'd studied acting and been on sets and done, you know, I've done maybe lines in like 4 different movies I still get residuals for. But like I said, I never.
That's terrific.
But it could be 10 cents. I mean, literally, I think the lowest I've had is like 11 cents. But anyway, so the last one being Executive Decision. That's probably the most one people have seen. Like I said, that kind of fell in my lap. So then I'm fine. You know, it's like on the spot, but to audition and stuff, oh, forget it.
Yeah.
So, like I said, the nerves are just ridiculous. And it's like, I just get ridiculous. But this, I was like, wow. And so I filled out a form, and he's like, okay, I live in Encino. He lives I literally live like 3 miles from him. And he goes, oh, we'll meet up. We'll have a meeting. And so he was happy. And I walked away from the booth holding hands with my husband. I felt like a little kid. And I was like, wow. And now I will say that, you know, also to those out there, I love the camera. You know, Marilyn Monroe loved the camera. I have this love affair with the camera. And to me, you can put forth any emotion on camera, and you don't have to say a word. For me, the camera's like a person, like you know, I just bore my eyes into a camera, especially with the hot, sexy stuff. But I can't explain it. And
it feels like just overall for you, it's so much about like a physical like performance thing that it's not even about words. Like it feels like that transfers from what you were doing before to your porn work is, because your body can do so much more in porn that, you know, you can't really say anything that is going to show that.
Right. That's what I'm saying. You know, you don't have to speak. You don't have to say anything. You can dance. You don't have to talk. But if I have to open my mouth, you know, for acting and or singing, it's a completely different story. And I know I have a great voice. I've done musicals, like I said, these pantomimes and stuff. You know, like, you know, I want to record some Christmas stuff. I've got to get around it because we have the stuff to do it. But so I walked around there like reborn, you know, and the 80s were not good for me. I mean, I did a lot of worked on all the movies. I saw a lot of movie stars and all that stuff, my personal life and stuff, everything about the 80s. And people will know this if they've read my depression article in AVN. about suicide and all that other stuff, and depression. But I always used to say, and I love the camera, why is it I can't be discovered? So many, supermodels are discovered and they're, they're okay with the camera and stuff. Why can't somebody, a lot of them actually were discovered, or like in places. And I was like, why can't somebody discover me? Well, the universe knew that I felt that, like I wanted to be discovered. Well, I was discovered, but I was discovered at the age of 50 for a completely different reason. And I believe it was meant to be, right? So I walk away from there and I said to my husband, what do you think? And he goes, I think it'll be good for you. And so, I get into town, we meet Dan, we go for some sushi. I actually met Nika, I think, at Noel at that time, who was under Sydney. Yeah, she was
still in LA.
Yeah. And she had just started doing some stuff for Dan and writing, and she was going by Sydney Ellis at that time. So around this time, this was now the middle end of January. So Dan had written a movie for me called I Like to Kiss, because I told him I love kissing so much. And he's like, oh, I've written this story, I Like to Kiss, for you. And I was like, oh, really? He goes, you've got one or two co-stars. You've got Lena, Nicole, or you've got Samantha Ryan. And Samantha, I don't know if she was going through some personal stuff at the time. So he picked that. But now I had to go get a test. And this was all new to me. And I never lie about my age. I wear it as a badge of honor. 64. I'm 64 now. And so one of the things my astrologer had given me in my initial reading was that, you are blessed that you are a late bloomer in life, like things. And the next big period in 2 years from now is a Jupiter period, which is the lucky planet for 16 years. So it's going to be even better for me. And I'm so glad. I think I'd prefer it to be better when I'm older, as opposed to being good when you're young and then it's crap for the rest of the time after that. So I think on my application I think I was 43. So when I went for my first test, I said, oh, I have to give you my ID and you have to know how old I am. And they go, well, yeah, so Dan's written a story. It was at his house and he was excited. I actually wasn't nervous about this because I knew.
So not nervous at all going into it? You were
no.
Like, I'm prepared. I know how to do all this.
Yeah, and it was improv. There was not much of a storyline, really. And he's like, oh, we do. Initially, had said to me when I first met him, we do beautiful things. It's bridal gowns and, very romantic, lots of kissing and touching. And, my husband and I barely even seen any porn. He used to watch something in the early 90s before I met him, like some guy called Andrew Blake that did very beautifully shot.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I know Andrew Blake.
Yeah. He used to do some of that. And even after we met, we would very rarely, watch porn together, from the old rental places that were used to be around. But so, I walk in and I'd requested some makeup because I really do a crappy job on my own makeup. And it's like, the least you can do is, make the girls look good. You're going to put them on a cover, give them some makeup, make them look good. Not everybody's good. Oh, we like the natural look. So anyway, I had a makeup artist there who's still a friend today, Jenny Carl. And she did most of my shoots for girlfriends. She would do the makeup. And that was part of my deal with it. It wasn't written, but it was like, hey, you want me to work? I need makeup. And that wasn't his thing with performing. He's like, okay. So I go to his house and he's setting up the lights in the bedroom. And I said, Dan, I have a confession to make. And he's like, and I said, well, I'm not 42, 43. And he goes, well, how old are you? And I went, I'll be 50 in 3 months. And he goes, that's no problem. So anyway, we start shooting.
That's so great. That's like the best response you could hear.
Yeah, because I usually don't, like I said, lie about my age, but I was like, no, I can't put on 49, So, we start the scene and she'd worked for him before. And it was so beautifully shot. It lasted like an hour. And I think what had happened prior to that too, I had some funky thing. I went to one of these parties. Oh God, it's a long story. I don't know if I should get into that. But anyway, Marcus London was at one of these parties and everybody's like, oh, he's a porn star. He's a porn star. And little did I know that I get to know him and the whole big thing years, a year later, whatever, never worked with him. but it was so natural for me. And I think he was so like, whoa, at the end of it, that I know he was on the phone, I think with Nika. And he's like, oh yeah, went really well. Really well. Now, Candy Girl, I don't know if you know who she was.
I do not.
A lesbian. She passed away.
Oh.
And she was his camera girl for years and years. And I don't know what happened. Things started to change a few years ago. And, they haven't booked me in like 5-6 years. And that's something I might get into, is the old ageism thing. But he was like, I think, blown away by it. And I remember telling Candy Girl, who was running the other camera, I said, oh, that was my first scene. I was, what? That was your first scene? She goes, oh my God, you're such a natural. And I wasn't nervous. I was more ambivalent is the word, because I don't know what to expect. If somebody fills me in on a little bit of stuff, then I kind of know more, but I wasn't nervous about the sex part. It was like, I'm good at that. And like I said, it's a talent. Not everybody can make love well. Not everybody can give cunnilingus well, or, blowjobs well. And, I believe it's a gift, and
I truly believe so too. I think it's mostly mental. I think it's mostly mental, because most people can't do this in front of a room full of people. Like they just physically can't. Like I think porn performers have such a unique talent that I think needs to be recognized more.
Absolutely. And one of my friends that I'm going to chat with tomorrow, I haven't seen her for 10 years. I mean, I've got some amazing stories from my fans that have met, married. I mean, it's amazing. But what was I going to say? So he was thrilled with it. And actually, I'm not going to talk about pay scale, but the pay scale he told me, because I asked him initially. And and he actually gave us more money because he was so happy. And for the rest of that shoot, he gave us above the rate, which he kind of actually started, I believe, because there was no real girl companies around when he started. There really wasn't. There were some girls and bigger name, companies, but not like him that I'm aware of. And so, I was the new it person and ended up working on him, on his stuff. So, prior to that, I know Nika would always tell my husband and I, there was an incident, what happened. And, why not? I'll be honest about it. One of these before I shot, after I'd met Dan, but before I started shooting him in March, Marcus London was at one of these parties in the Valley. And I remember it was like, I think a Super Bowl party or something. And, like I said, I was never having sex with any, my husband and I weren't. It was more like having fun, give us some spice in our sex life.
Yeah.
Just watching other people, and
watching other people. Yeah.
And I would
just like more fun stuff.
Yeah. So I remember he was known for getting to women to squirt, and I'd never squirted. And so I think I was like, oh, I could never do that. And he goes, every woman can do it. So he did that to me, and I did. But now what happened was, I think I got some kind of iffy something going on down there because of that. And, still being a little bit naive about and so Dan had booked me to, I'm probably divulging way too much stuff here, but
you're fine. Also, it's porn stuff from like 13 years ago. So I'm assuming no one's gonna get that stressed.
Well, people know me. I'm very honest. I'm very down to earth. A lot of my fans have become what I call friends I've never met yet. Some birthday cards and Christmas cards and all that stuff. But my fans are like my family, to me.
So cute.
Oh yeah. So I remember Dana booked me, and I think the morning of I had to cancel because something wasn't right, and it wasn't anything major. I think it was like bacterial or something. And he's like, oh, okay, well, let me know when you're another day. So apparently he told Nika this, and she goes, yeah, she's chickening out. She's not going to do it. Right. That's what she always said to Dad. She told us, she was told Dan, like, yeah, I just don't think she's the real deal. But anyway, after the scene, once it was, I got, I had the test and everything was good. He's like, oh my God. He's like, this is so good. So I think he called her and said, no, she's the real deal. So this other one little funny story I wanted to tell you, and I felt great, by the way. I was like, wow. And I remember telling my husband, like, what happens if I get into porn and it gets out there and my mother will hear? And once you dip your toe in the water, you can't go back. Once you've done it once, you're out there. And he goes, well, you just take that gamble. And I said, what happens if he only uses me half a dozen times? He goes, well, he only uses you half a dozen times. So, but it didn't turn out that way. And who knew?
Yeah, you've had a super successful career. You got nominated for multiple AVNs, Expo awards, all of that.
Yeah. And one of the funny things is, I'll tell you, is that this is a funny story. I don't think I've ever told this. One of these events we did go to because at that time, AVN was like the 7th through 9th of January, right? Mm-hmm. It was a different time, which was kind of ridiculous because it's right after Christmas and New Year. So we had gone to a party down south somewhere. I would want to say, I don't know, somewhere an hour south or so of LA. And it was a New Year's Eve party, and you had to bring your own booze to these things, and they put your name on the label, and the bartender knew it was your booze. And I remember there was a big house party, and at midnight on New Year's Day, 2007, 10 days before I met Dan, there was 100 people at this party. And after midnight, most people disappeared, and they all disappeared to bedrooms, right? Yeah. So, and then they started to leave, and they disappeared to bedrooms. So there was very few people downstairs that were dancing. Now, one of the rooms had a stripper pole in it. And so there was a couple couches for viewers to watch the strippers, right? Mm-hmm. And so I sat there with my husband, and there was a couple women dancing, and I think I got up to dance, and I bought something in my pocket, like a really itsy bitsy, sexy bra and pants, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of went and put that on. And so basically I was doing a show for my husband and maybe one other couple. And I was like, nobody's here. I'll just do my thing. I'll be, because I love dancing. And but anyway, we took a break. And I think what happened was I had this on, and this gal was pretty blonde woman, probably in her 40s, late mid 40s, comes up to dance. And she goes like this to me and beckons me. And she goes, why don't you come up here with me? Ooh. So I was like, okay. So I get up there and we start making out and kissing. And then we're laying on the base of the pole, and I'm going down on her, and she's going down on me. And my husband's close by looking at this going like, this is really hot. And I say to her, and it was like very memorable. And, bear in mind, this hadn't happened for, once in 30 something years or whatever. And so she's really hot. We're dancing, and this is like 4:00 in the morning, and we have to drive back to LA. And so anyway, I asked her, and I go, what's your name? She goes, Cindy. And I told her mine, and before my stage name. And so she's like, oh, I have parties. You should come to one of my parties. I'm in Pasadena. And I was like, okay. So we did go to one of her parties at the end. Now, after meeting Dan, this was at the end of January, before I started shooting. And she'd open the door in like a little cutout with her boobs showing, like a little tiny, what do you call it? Maid outfit with her booty out. And she had a blow up mattress in the living room. And she had signs. She had signs all over, like, no, don't be afraid, come on me, come on my boob tits or whatever. Wow. And she was this great exhibitionist, right? That's so cool. Yeah. And we met, some really nice couples, and eventually over time, a couple months, this all stopped and stuff. And I don't even know what's going on with the business now. But once I kind of got in the business, I kind of stopped going to them, right, after a few months. But they were more for just like fun, like I said. So anyway, that was like at the end of January. Come about 6 months after I've been working for Dan, Dan says to me, hey, I've got this woman I'd like you to talk to. She's I want to get her to perform, and maybe you can talk to her and tell her what it's like to work for me and to what we do. And I was like, sure. So I call her on the phone, and we're chatting, and she's really, really nice and everything. So this is like months down the road, like I said, about 8-9 months. And so anyway, I'm on Dan's set. And he initially started, because I'm a night person, I had said to him, well, how many shoots do you do a week? And he goes, I do 1 DVD a month at that time, or maybe 2. And he's like, so I shoot from 11 till 3 and then 3 till 7 p.m. I went, put me on the 3 to 7 p.m. So anyway, I'm doing like another shoot at his house. Maybe it was, I forget, it was several months later anyway. And so this gal is sitting there and I'm looking at her and I go, I know you. And she goes, really? She goes, yeah, you look familiar too. And I said, party. You have the parties. And she's like, yeah. So I'm like, what a small world. So it turns out it was Cindy and we ended up doing a couple scenes together.
Oh my
she was
God.
Yeah. And so she gets in the business and then eventually she goes by Cindy Crave. She was doing boy girl stuff. But yeah, I was like, wow, what a small world. And so she ended up doing a lot of stuff for Dan as well. And then she did some boy girl, but some of my actual best scenes, people have asked me, what are some of the best girl scenes you've done? Because I've probably done like 130 or whatever, more than that. Yeah. And I always say Cindy was one of my best because something about the older performers, we've been around in life more, we've had more experience and, none of them are rushed and any of that stuff. And even recently, the last girl I did, or one of the latest ones I did, the girls tend to rush it and stuff. And that wasn't Dan's style. And that certainly wasn't my style in real life. I never wanted to rush it. I mean, people say, oh, like the quickie out of the car and being, risky outside by, somewhere else. And that's fine, but I was never into the harder side of sex. I was always into the more romantic side. So, I've never done anal. Last time I did anal was with my husband. That was probably like 20 odd years ago. So I don't do anal. I don't do gangbangs and I don't do, and I don't like huge guys. I mean, my fans know that, and I think people have asked me a lot of, certain people have asked me about interracial. And it's not that I have a thing. I've had scenes with girls, of all, different nationalities, majority of them white, but the thing is that even though I'm in the business, I have a comfort level, and my comfort level is I don't like big. And it's like I said earlier, 40 minutes ago already, that it has to be comfortable for me. And even at my age, it's just that certain biological changes happen when you get to a certain age. You don't have as much, you're not as, to be blunt, you don't have as much vaginal fluid and you don't have the wetness that you used to have when you were younger. And that's just a fact of life. It happens to all women that get to a certain point, and so, like I said, I've never done, and it's not, I haven't done an interracial guy ever. If it was the right occasion and done in the right way, storyline, but how can you find people? I mean, there's white guys in this business, they get in the business because they have the huge dicks, right? So
and I think just particularly like the tropes of interracial porn, like it's not even just like Black performers, it's just like this whole trope that it's like this male Black performer has to have a gigantic dick, and it's like all these like, I don't know, terms I'm uncomfortable with,
Yeah. Oh, and I cringe. I see something like that and I go, oh no,
right.
No way.
I'm just like, I don't know. Like, can you just have two people having sex and be happy about that?
I know.
That's how I feel.
I mean, the last boy girl I did was for Nika for Lost Cinema, and that was 3 years ago. And I think the one before that, I don't even remember. It's I'm known for my girl. That's what I'm most comfortable with. And I think even my fans have said, my fans have said to me, on Twitter, they'll say, we can tell, sometimes, you got to do certain positions. And I've always, I've done those gonzo-y scenes in the beginning. But, it's not that I can't take them back. I did them, but it's not comfortable for me. I mean, you have to always do ridiculous positions and, because the viewer has to get in there and see all this stuff up close. And it's like, no. It's just, and for me, it's, even 10 years ago, it's like, even though I had a hysterectomy, I only have my cervix. So, it's very weird because I would see little girls, 5 foot nothing girls, in some videos that I check out, seeing guys that are like, not only tall, but have these huge penises. And I'm like, where do they put it? I mean, they can't get it all in there, but how is that comfortable? And I mean, I I went to do, I was contacted in 2012 by Score Group in Florida. I'd never been there. And they asked me to do a couple of scenes, boy-girl scenes. And I said, well, you know, it was for their over 50 something. I was like 50, I forget what I was at the time. Mm-hmm. So I said, well, you know, do you have any guys that aren't ridiculously big? And they're like, well, it's porn. I went, yeah, I know it's porn, but I don't want guys that are big. And she goes, well, you know, the smallest we have might be 7 inches. And I was like, okay. So the first day, there was 2 scenes. The first day I go in there, there's this guy, 7 inches. And then the next day I had to come back. And there was this guy, I forget his name, Johnny something. And I told the makeup gal, and she goes, I said, oh, I don't know who I have tomorrow. And she looks at the call sheet or the sheet and she goes, oh, you have Johnny, who was there the day before. And oh my God, he was so big. I literally had to stop. People probably don't know this, but I had to stop several times because it's supposed to be continuous, you know?
Yeah.
I had to stop.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a real sex scene.
Well, yeah, but they weren't even romantic. They were like gonzo-y things, you know? It's like, ooh, touch his crotch, and he had jeans with, you know, this big schlong in his jeans, and, you know, and I was touching it, and he had rips there. It was all, you know, I mean, to be sexy. But I had to stop. It
sounds very Florida. Sounds very Florida. Very Florida.
And I said, sorry, I gotta stop. And I felt like I had to go pee. And there's this feeling that you have where I think you get so dry. I mean, literally, when somebody is that big, it'll dry you out. You know, maybe somebody not in their 20s or 30s or whatever, but I felt like it's a feeling, it's hard to describe. Some women that are older might explain it, might be able to explain it, but I had to stop like 3-4 times with this guy because it was just so uncomfortable. And I swear to God, on the plane back later that night, I was sore for like at least 24 hours. So everybody's different. Every woman's different inside and, you know, vaginally. And when you're younger, you know, when you don't get into porn, it was only when I got into porn that I saw different vaginas, different shapes, different labia, different this, different that. And I was like, wow, we really are varied. You know, just like guys are varied, we vary as well. So I got to learn a lot more about the female anatomy, but something that I was, you know, that, like I said, the natural stuff I was good at, and is my comfort zone, is the girl stuff. And I, you know, in our scene, I had always wanted to do that, and it really wasn't being done. I mean,
no, at the time, like that a mainstream company did that at that time is so wild. Like just looking back at it, I was so new in my career at the time too. Like I was shooting a lot of queer porn in San Francisco, so I was shooting mostly lesbian stuff, but to shoot, like, I feel like our scene was a true girl scene where it was like sensual and emotional and all that sort of stuff.
It was brilliant. I mean, a lot of people love that scene, you know, and even the 3-way with Rob was really, really good. And that's the kind of stuff. And, you know, when I go on camera, I mean, it was just natural to me, even doing stuff like, you know, not say turning it up a notch, but, you know, I'd never seen any girl porn. I was doing stuff with Dan for at least 1.5 years, just him only. And I wasn't under contract. But I, you know, it was like anal licking and nipples on clitorises and all that stuff. And I just didn't know if that was being done. But I look at it this way. I have said, I want the viewer to, it's kind of like looking into a camera. You want to come into their living room. And if they're alone in Kansas or wherever, and they're, you know, and they're by themselves and they want to masturbate or they have a date or whatever, I want to turn them on and have them have a good time by watching what I'm doing with the other performer. So I always have them in the back of my mind, like, what would they like to see? You know, I'm doing this for them. And it wasn't only doing it for myself, it was really performing for other people, you know, and, you know, Dan had said to me, he goes, you know, what you guys, a lot of people around the world will criticize us for what we do. But there's an openness to being that free and to be able to, you know, he would say, oh, you know, maybe 0.5% of the world will get into porn. And I said, you know, we're a very special group because we're willing to put ourselves out there Totally. Not only,
Completely.
you know,
Yeah,
physically.
every moment.
Yeah, physically, emotionally, sexually, everything we do. And not everybody can do that. And so, you know, I've always said that mainstream will do it. And you know that a mainstream movie has got a couple getting together and they're having sex. And maybe you'll see the topless women or the butts and all that other stuff. And you know what they're doing. But we're just taking that one step further to the actual sexual part. And I just never understood why, you know, it got such a rap, and it's changed dramatically since the 90s and all that other stuff. And yeah, it's just, some people it comes very natural to, and some to it doesn't, and some it doesn't. But for me, I was like, you know, I've had this hysterectomy, I've had these problems, ectopic pregnancies, I couldn't get pregnant. And even, you know, having tightness still in my vagina. And I'm like, you know, I'm probably one of the worst people to get into this business, because I've had all these problems in the past, but it was my calling. And
yeah, it's about what you overcome, though. I feel like that's what it really is. Like you overcame all of those things, and then you found it later in life, and then you've gotten to explore like your whole like lesbian side on camera. Like, that's really amazing. Like, I think that's why it rings so true to so many people, your performances, because you're still like exploring all that. That's really deep in you.
Oh, yeah. And it's funny because I have always said that making love to someone that you're in love with, or, you know, making love to someone is a transcendent experience. Like, if you were to, like, when you connect, like, you know, having sex with my husband and stuff, it doesn't happen so much anymore, but when you connect with someone you love, it's almost like an orgasming. It's almost like high, that it's an experience where you, to me, it's like touching the divine. And people need that. It's like there's so many problems in life that it's like letting the pressure off a pressure cooker. If you build up, you know, that sexual tension, and many people will smoke weed, or I don't smoke it, but, you know, there's people that will do weed or get other reasons to get high. But in that moment, when you both orgasm or close to one another, usually the women will first and then the guy. But when you get to that experience, I've actually had tears. It can be it's like a release. It's almost like a spiritual high. And so I call it connecting it to the divine. And I remember when I told my astrologer, because I get a birthday reading every year, what's called a solar return. So it gives you an idea of what the next year is, like freezing the planets on your birthday. So it kind of gives you an indication of what your next year is going to be. But when I told him what I did, one of the first things he said to me in my reading was, he goes, "Your karma here on earth is with women." And I found that odd, because he's like, because I never really had women friends, you know, like some people have like a group, a gaggle of girls, girlfriends will go out for clubs and stuff. I never had that. I always had one close friend at a time. And even here, I've been here for 41 years now. I still don't have close girlfriends. Like, my husband's my best friend, but I get along with everybody. And when I've met fans and stuff, and I feel like the mother of the group, you know, because I'm older than most of them. But when I told my astrologer this, he's like, "Oh, it makes perfect sense what you do." He says, "And not everybody." And he goes, "The fact that you got in it at your age," he said, "it has destroyed probably a lot of young girls. They get in it.
For sure. Yeah.
They're in it for 6 months. They get used. They haven't fully, as they say, fully cooked or fully developed yet. And so they're willing to do things they ordinarily wouldn't do, that they get talked into while they're on the set. It's like, oh, well, while you're here, you know, do this." And that stuff probably has always gone on. And I've still heard about it going on.
I mean,
so like
I came in really young. So yeah, when I came in, like, I think there's 2 girls left who started the same time I did. And that's all just been in my 20s.
Say that again?
Yeah, like the turnover rate's so wild for new performers. I started when I was like 20. I probably started with like 200 trans women started about the same time as me. There's like 2 left now.
Really?
Like, yeah, everyone just burns out. And especially with like trans women, a lot of these companies use like male approval, and like gender approval is a thing to try to get people to work with them for either reduced rates or in really toxic situations.
Yeah.
So like, I think you had such an advantage being older and having, you know, you knew what life was like, you know, you were established.
Yeah, I mean, Nika always used to write that, oh, you know, she's a trailblazer. I know when she was still with girlfriends at that time, not for long. I mean, something happened and they stopped working after about a year and or a year or so. But yeah, it was, I don't know, it's just, it was so natural for me and it was definitely meant to be, you know. But like I said, when I explained this to my astrologer about my transcendent into, it's like another high, it's like touching the divine. That's the true meaning of it. Yeah, there's like sexual fast, all that stuff. And he said to me, he goes, what's interesting is like, he goes, you're describing tantric sex. And I said, my astrologer always said that he's on the other end of the sex, the darker side. And he has a band and all that other stuff. But he's like, yeah, people like me are on the darker side, but not bad probably. Yeah. But, you know, I was more into the spiritual connecting, touching, connecting part of it. So he's like, the fact that you came into this life knowing all that stuff is really cool. That's really something. Yeah, because I've always believed in reincarnation and all that stuff. So he's like, the fact that, you know, you bring in gifts and talents that you've had from before. And one of the other things, I had never, ever in my life, even when I didn't know much about it, I had never criticized or said anything bad about trans people. In fact, one of the articles that
good on that.
Was
I'm
that?
glad. I'm glad.
No. I always kind of got it. It depends. I don't know if you believe in that in reincarnation stuff, but to me, it's always made total sense.
Yeah, I'm Buddhist. Yeah, I converted to Buddhism about 2 years ago.
Oh, really?
My partner's family is all from Vietnam, and I got introduced to a lot of stuff from them. And yeah, it just it really helped me. Just I think like even just like meditation. It's kind of what I've done during the pandemic.
But, you know, this is just a physical vehicle that we're in. You know, it's the body. I would just want to write a book and say it's just a body, stupid. Because who we are, you know, I've always, because of my love of breasts and stuff, and even my husband think that's weird. I mean, there was a plastic surgery. There was a show years ago about plastic surgery, and a woman went to a plastic surgeon because her boobs were too big and she literally had to lift them up like, and they were way up here. And my husband walked in when I was looking at it, he goes, you really like that, don't you? And I went, yeah. And he goes, oh, that's so disgusting.
So I don't want to keep you all day, so I have one more question for you.
Oh no, you know what, you're good. I can talk forever. As you realize, okay. These people realize.
So if you could magically change one thing in porn overnight, it's different tomorrow, what would you have it be? You can take this any way you want. This is like always the closing question I ask, just because I feel like it's kind of hopeful for the future.
Oh, wow. Well, ageism, basically, plain and simple. I mean, you know, there's companies that I've never had an agent because a couple that I did get were pretty useless. So people just aren't even aware that I'm around still. I haven't officially retired, is that people aren't hiring. And it's just one of those things where, you know, I wish that it's just a number. You know, women don't have to look old and craggy, and there's a market for everything, you know, and everything and everyone. And one of the things, like, I'm sorry that I talked for so long, but I'm very passionate about a lot of this stuff.
I'm so happy. This is going to be a great episode for everyone to hear this.
No, I don't hold back. And I'm sorry that you didn't actually get to probably ask questions you wanted.
It's great. My whole thing with doing these is I'm like, I just want to really as give performers a place to talk, because I feel like we usually aren't given places like this.
Right, so, exactly.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was going to say too is that, you know, you're not keeping me from anything. I don't know if I'm keeping you from something else, and I apologize for that.
No, you're all good.
You know, but my husband and I would, if we did go to a party, being night owls, we'd usually be one of the last there and definitely like the last to leave, because, you know, that's just the way we are. And it's like, you know, don't be afraid, kick us out, tell us you want to go to bed. You know, we got it. We understand. We don't take it personally like you would if you were in your 20s. But I will say that this experience, wherever it goes, has changed my life for the better so much. And the people that I've met, the fans that I've met, the people that I've touched in so many ways. And I have to say, one of the things, one of my fans came here to go on a lesbian cruise with another gal. It was a friend of hers from Sweden. This gal was from England. Mm-hmm. And she was in her early, I think, same age as my husband, because he's a few years younger than me. Mm-hmm. But we met, and most of the time it's like a nervous energy for me. And part of the reason I chat so much when I meet someone new is that it's like nervous energy. Yeah. And I don't like to be around people that don't have much to say, because it's boring. And then you feel like you have to do all the talking, and then you don't really want to talk about yourself the whole time. And then it turns out that you kind of do, but you don't want to. But I met this gal, and in person, we went for dinner, and I'm glad to meet them. I'll go out of my way to meet them. I've even driven 60 miles to meet fans that have come from Germany, whatever.
Wow.
But yeah, and bought them drinks, by the way, but with my husband. But this one lady, we still follow each other. She had said, "Do you want to know how I found you?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead." She said, "Well, I've been married to my husband for 20 odd years, and had two kids that are now full grown." And she said, "I realized that divorcing my husband, that I really all along like women."
Wow.
And she had said, "I didn't know what to do with another woman." And so I kind of went on the internet and poked around, and you came up. And she said, "I learned everything that I needed to do with a woman through you."
Wow.
And That's
so heartwarming.
Wow. I was like, wow. I said, that's the good part of this. You can teach so many things. People that might not know how to go down on a guy or do cunnilingus or do certain things. We're like teachers. What we do is kind of like teaching in a way. Mm-hmm. And why we get so much flack, it is changing a bit, but I've always been for sex workers. In past lives, my actually astrologer thinks that he goes, "I always envision you as a madam in the old West." And he goes, "I'm sure that's how I knew."
Yeah, I could see that.
And so I've never had a problem with people's hooking or call girling or any sexual profession. And
like that.
No, nothing. And like I said, for me, it's just, when I look at somebody, I don't see their gender. I see their soul, their essence of who they are. And, one of the other interviews I did was, I think right after we did our scene, maybe it was 14, end of 14, we did our scene, but there was a thing about that Sharon did for AVN about working with you, for the first time. And when Nika approached me, I was like, absolutely, because they had the T awards and stuff.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like story driven things. It wasn't
not
like
at all.
It was just gonzo-y stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
it was
I'm like,
all really gross and like fetishizing too. Like that, like what I was able to do with you and Nika Noel, it was just so different because it wasn't like this whole stigmatizing thing. That's like,
no, and it's like, I stand up for that. I am a big, I would stand up for anybody of any gender. And I, because of my beliefs in reincarnation, one of the reasons why, I know I have this very masculine side to me, and that's balance. That's good. I might be a female in this lifetime. I might be, but there's that male essence, and there are some femininity in a lot of males. They just don't bring it out. That's the emotional part. Definitely. And then there's the hardness in the women that's more aggressive. And so I balance that in a way. So like I said, I just, to teach people, I mean, was it something else? But the people that I've reached in my sphere, even on Twitter, and I don't have a huge amount of followers. I have almost 50,000 because I haven't had anything to promote in years. I'm going to hopefully be doing some of my own girl stuff here at the end of the year, hopefully a couple of scenes. But it's just, I mean, there's a limit to everything, but I just, like I said, the people that I've met, some of them, the ones I'm talking to tomorrow, one is in Israel, one is from New York that found me in a very bad time of her life, and we ended up becoming friends from a distance. We haven't spoken in many years, but they've been a couple for 10 years. They're meeting, and I'm going to be on Skyping or something with them tomorrow. And there's people that have met each other, friends in Finland now that's going to meet another gal friend that they call like sisters in England. And other people that are in the States are meeting other people in New York and becoming friends. And it's like this big, beautiful network that I love. And I always tell them, you're my family, you know, and they are. And I really hope that one day, I might have to do a GoFundMe, but one day I hope to visit these people in Europe. They're all over Finland, Germany, Switzerland, but I just want to do that one day because they mean a lot to me. But in order to, what I was going to say was, yeah, the age thing. I just said the other people like, oh, I want a new scene from you. Just the other day, where's the new scenes? I'm like, hit up the companies. You know, COVID didn't help. I had a couple of offers, one from Girlfriends Films and one from somebody for Age and Beauty, and it was a girl, but it's like there were no vaccines at the time. And I've had double pneumonia and been in the hospital. I know what it's like. And my doctor said I was very lucky to have a staph infection along with double pneumonia. And it was 8 days in the hospital. So all these people not getting vaccinated, get vaccinated, guys.
Get vaccinated, everyone.
Yeah. And then you can have more porn as well. Yep. So, but that's my question is like, I wish, there seems to be guys that I know that are in their late 50s and 60s because there's so few men that they work. Mm-hmm. But the women, it's like, oh my God, 50 is okay. But 60 is, oh my God, that's ancient. And it's like such bullshit. You know, it's just, I've still got a fan base that want to see stuff. Mm-hmm. And as long as I can, and it's sad that and it's just always been a thing about age. And it's about time that, it's in just about every career, movies and everything. Mm-hmm. So it's just, age is just a number. And we have value, we have a lot of experience in life. We have so much experience. We know ourselves more and what we want. So that is what I'd like to see change. And I'm glad there have been changes for trans movies. And I was glad that I was really happy that you and I did that scene. And it was an amazing scene. And one of the first that was really out there as a storyline. And I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that. Yeah.
Where can people find you? Like on social media, on stuff like that? Is Twitter the best place to find you?
Yeah, Magdalene XXX is on Twitter. And I've been off a little bit on it recently, but I'm kind of go on and off these days. But I mean, I usually am on it all the time. I'm going to start going back on it. I've had stuff around to do in my newer home. But there, and then I really don't have, I'm just trying to think. I don't go on my Facebook anymore. I do have Magdalene St. Michael's on my Facebook. I have an Instagram. I think it's, I have an Instagram. I try to get on there more. I should do more stuff. My Instagram is, I think Magdalene_St. or St. Michaels.
So everyone follow her. Definitely.
Yeah, it was so good to see you.
It was so great to chat with you.
Bye.